like, if we like it, we'll sign it, and then we'll figure out how we're gonna make it work, how we're gonna promote it, what's the way we're gonna bring this thing that we think is cool to the most amount of people. Does that mean a certain type of promotion as opposed to another type? Does it mean like getting some remixes on it, getting some other people associated with the project that will help bring light to it, you know, that wouldn't otherwise come to that artist? But ultimately, if we like it, we'll just do it, and we'll figure it out later.
Welcome to For the Record, a casual, mostly unedited conversation series presented by Greyman, where we speak with music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. I'm your host, McKeegan Voice.
Today on episode 48, I chatted with JKriv, aka JKriv. Jason is a Brooklyn-based producer, DJ, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and label owner. He's a trained jazz musician and live performer who ended up honing his skills primarily as a DJ and producer. Amongst those he's worked with are Horsemeat Disco and Dames Brown, and he's garnered club and radio support from luminaries like Pete Tong and Andrew Weatherall. He's also the co-founder of Brooklyn label Razor and Tape, which has had a sizable impact on both his local New York scene and dance music worldwide. We chatted about his journey from jazz to curation, and of course, all the great music that's been part of his life. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah, well, hey, Jason, it's great to have you here.
Thanks, great to be here.
Cool, yeah, I feel like our routes here were connected in a few different ways, both through Mari, who we realized we have as a mutual friend, which is cool. And then Razor and Tape did a gray list back in 2021 that I was just going back and reading through and looking at the music, which was great. And now here we are, a few years later, uniting around this new series For the Record. And yeah, excited to dive more into your story. And as is the case with all of these episodes, we like to start at the beginning. And we'd love to get a sense of, like where you're from and where you grew up and when your relationship with music started.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in New York. I grew up about an hour north of the city, Westchester County, northern Westchester County. But my family's all from New York and been here a long time. Like my grandparents were born in Brooklyn. And now I've lived in Brooklyn for about 25 years. But my music for me started pretty young. I don't come from a musical family, but there was a lot of music in my house growing up. And I just got into it early on, and I remember like from a super young age, like I was like making guitars out of cardboard to like get up in front of my class when I was 6 years old and like lip sync to, whatever was popular at the time. And well, what was popular at the time for me was like rock and stuff like that. And that's what I got into first. That was like sort of like in the 80s, rock and metal and stuff like that was actually where I started with music.
Cool.
And I think metal actually was like the thing that kind of got me attuned to like the actual just technicality of music and some of the musicianship. And there's a lot of obviously in that kind of music, which is not really my thing anymore, although I still feel attached to some of the early stuff that I got into. There's just a real attention to like these big grand arrangements and technical prowess on instruments and stuff. And I started playing instruments at about that time when I was about 12 years old, when I was like super into all of that stuff. That and classic rock and other things like that. And then from classic rock and other music from the 70s, that was sort of like a natural transition into like funk and other things that were going on in that same era. So I think that was sort of like my bridge into more of the type of music that I'm into now. So I started listening to stuff like Sly and the Family Stone and Parliament Funkadelic. And at the time there was like cyclically with music, we were like 20 years after that point. It's a long time ago. And there was that stuff was kind of making a comeback in the sound of like groups like like Red Hot Chili Peppers in their early days, and other like Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. You know, it was like some of those like funky elements were being incorporated into stuff that was like more along the lines of the other stuff I'd already been listening to. And it all kind of started to come together for me. And then from there, I just started getting into a lot of jazz and hip hop, and like I studied jazz for 4 years when I was in college. I thought I was going to be a jazz musician. Like really did nothing else. And then pretty quickly came back to once I get back to New York from school, I came back to like the original thing that got me into music, which was like music that gets people excited and that people kind of like respond to in a physical way. So from there, just like getting involved with some bands that were playing a bit more like sort of acid jazz, or kind of a bit, I started playing with Tortured Soul in the early 2000s. We played together. I played with them all through the 2000s, touring with them, playing like live house music. And that was my initial exposure into the world of like clubs and DJ oriented stuff. I mean, I had gone to all the New York clubs when I was a kid, like that were there in the 90s. You know, I'd gone down and gone to Shelter and Sound Factory and Tunnel and Limelight, and I'd been in all those spaces, but it didn't have a huge impact on me at the time, because I was into music that was played by musicians, you know. And so it took being in Tortured Soul for me to sort of start understanding a bit more about this world and seeing the nuances of it and the beautiful things about it. And yeah, so that was my first exposure. And from there, you know, I really just got sort of hooked on trying to make some of this music and be involved with it. I've done lots of different things since then. I mean, I also played in the band Escort, which is sort of like live disco stuff. Started Razor and Tape with my partner Aaron in about 2012. And we've just been going strong since then. And yeah, I guess it's been a very like roundabout sort of way for me to come at what I'm doing now, probably somewhat unusual. You know, I didn't like grow up wanting to be a DJ. I wanted to be in bands, and wanted to like make music, and the DJing thing came later. I didn't really start even DJing until I didn't even start getting serious at all about it until around 2010, 2011 was when I really first started DJing. It's such a big part of my life now, but it did come much later after these other things, after playing live music and starting to think about production and stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty rare to have such a mutual appreciation for, you know, both DJing and electronic music culture, as well as, you know, music played by musicians.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like most people are on one side of the fence or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think people often come at the live thing, people, especially in this world, people come there later. You know what I mean? They develop an appreciation for stuff like jazz through, you know, through selectors who introduce them to stuff like that. But that comes after, kind of, for a lot of people in this world, most of the people that I meet, at least. Yeah.
Right. Going back to, like, you know, the early days when you were listening to classic rock and metal, like, who's one band in each of those realms that like you feel like embodies your memory of that time? Like, what do you feel most nostalgic about?
Sure. I mean, well, like my first concert ever was Metallica in 1989 on the And Justice for All tour at the Hartford Civic Center. It was actually March 17th, 1989.
Wow.
I know that date.
Your memory.
Well, my buddy's it was my buddy's birthday, and one of my friends had a cool dad, and he took like four of us to go see this concert for 4 or 5 12-year-old little metalheads. I actually found that concert on YouTube recently because Metallica used to encourage fan video. They were like, before they got all insane with all that stuff that went down, whatever, Napster or LimeWire or whatever it was. They used to really encourage that sort of thing. They were like one of the groups that like there was a whole culture of people who like kind of like Grateful Dead or something, you know, they record it and they'd share it. But yeah, so that video, there's a video of my first concert and it exists online. It was pretty insane to watch that.
Yeah,
But yeah, so Metallica on the metal side for me, for sure. For classic rock, I mean, you know, just standard Led Zeppelin. I mean, I still love that music. I think I've got every record over there in the rock section. Yeah.
yeah, those are good answers. And then which instruments did you start playing after, you know, like the air guitar that you made out of cardboard?
Yeah. I actually, well, so my first instrument is bass, and it's my main instrument. And I always kind of wanted to play bass, but it also made a lot of sense because I already had a few friends playing guitar, and we wanted to start a band, of course, you know, so we needed a bass player. But that has been, yeah, that's been, I mean, I play guitar as well. I always had guitar around, and I've picked it up, and I've played it. You know, I can play guitar reasonably well enough, I think, to like record. And I don't really love playing. I mean, I used to play it live on stage with Escort, but I feel like bass is my main thing. I can play some keys too, and so a few other things, some percussion and stuff. I mean, because I studied music for a long time, and I have a pretty good understanding of music theory and stuff like that, I can figure basically anything out that I need to.
Right.
But in terms of technical facility, bass is my main instrument.
Cool. So is that what you were pursuing when you were, you know, going to school and planning to go to jazz, like playing upright bass or something?
Yeah, yeah. So I went to Oberlin College, which is a college and a conservatory. I was not in the conservatory, I was in the college, but I was basically able to take advantage of a very loose sort of like, they just weren't strict about how you could distribute your classes there. And I was able to essentially, I mean, I pretty much did like a jazz performance minor, more or less. That's all I cared about when I was there. I mean, I know I was doing something else because I also got a degree in English, but all I can remember is playing jazz and studying it, and just like being laser focused on that at the time.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, do you ever think about like what, I mean, do you have any regrets about like not pursuing a jazz career, or like thinking about that or not doing it?
That's a good question. And the short answer is no, I don't.
Good.
Jazz is still very much in my life. Like I would say I listen to jazz all the time. Like it's like big part of my life still. And it's informed all of the music that I make. But the reason why I transitioned out of that pretty quickly upon getting back into the real world out of college was that when I came back to New York, I mean, fully thinking I was going to be a jazz musician. I was coming to New York. I was going to that's what I was going to do. And I started going to jam sessions and sort of trying to immerse myself in that world. And I just found it to be a really competitive and like about so many things that didn't have anything to do with music.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like there's a real like machismo and bravado thing that happens in the jazz world. And I don't know, I mean, we could talk a lot about where that all comes from, but that's maybe another interview. But like, I just realized, man, I was like playing these gigs, waiting until 3 a.m. at Smalls to get up and play at the jam session. And then you get up there and you're just playing for a bunch of other shitty jazz musicians who are just like all they want to do is just like, they think they want to prove how much better than they are. And like, you know, it's just like, I was like, oh no, this isn't why I like to play music, you know? And at that time I got a gig playing with this band Topaz, this acid jazz group. And we were just like playing kind of like, there was like a lot of spots in New York at the time that were sort of hybrid live and DJ oriented places. And we were playing places like that, like the Izzy Bar and Baby Jupiter. There's a big like Lower East Side scene back then, Knitting Factory, the original Knitting Factory. And it was just like so much more fun. You know, I was like, oh, this is musical and it's fun, and you can be as, you know, as technically rigorous as you want to be, but still it's about like groove, and it's about making people dance, and it's about something a little bit deeper than just like showing how, you know, facile you are at an instrument to a bunch of other like dudes who think they're better than you.
Yeah, that doesn't feel healthy, and it sort of feels antithetical to like you know, what I think about jazz is this, you know, kind of like fluid on-stage conversation that people are having with each other rather than against each other.
No, of course. I mean, and it's like it's a sad thing because unfortunately the audience is just not there for it the way it was. Maybe it's coming back, I don't know. But like at that time, it just felt like there was so few gigs and so many like hungry
Yeah,
musicians just vying for them, and it yeah, created a real competitive environment.
yeah, that's too bad. Smalls though continues to be one of my favorite bands.
Smalls is great. Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Um, cool. So yeah, I'm, you know, I'm curious when, you know, given that the scope of your musical interests, you know, is pretty broad. When you got to Razor and Tape, like what did you try to define it? Like what, you know, how are you thinking about in, you know, the types of music that you wanted to represent, that you wanted to feature and amplify?
Yeah. I mean, at the time that we started Razor and Tape, it was pretty simple. It was like I had made a bunch of disco edits, and Aaron, my partner, he's not a producer, but he had thrown a lot of parties and been DJing, and he had some like personal edits that some of the DJs who had played his party had given him. All right. So we had this like pile of basically bootleg edits, and we're like, you know, these are great. Let's like we should start a label and just get them out there on vinyl. Like it was like that simple basically. And that's how it began. And that's still, you know, some people kind of still know Razor and Tape as oh, you're a disco label, like
Yeah.
that's what you guys do. I mean, if you've been paying attention or digging to the catalog for the past 5 years, it's much broader than that. But that's where it started. And that was, I think we built, you know, I had just started making these things. I had been getting some like nice response, like giving them away on SoundCloud and stuff like that. And that was just what the music that Aaron and I were both into playing at the time too. We were like excited about sort of like classic disco that had been sort of reworked to sound a bit more modern and a bit more like current and DJ friendly. And so that was it. It just came from just being excited about some of this music we were playing and that I was making, and there wasn't a whole lot of thought beyond that given to it.
Right.
Over time, you know, as the label grew and as we became more established, we started to feel that it was important to not just be putting out bootleg music, but actually be contributing something back to the culture that we're a part of. And now I think we do put out an occasional edits record, but really much more than that. We're very focused on artists and new music and developing artist releases and things like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I guess today when you're thinking about who you want to include, you know, in Razor and Tape, you know, looking for artists, listening, exploring. Yeah, I know it's really hard to like put words to something like what, you know, what captures your ear, like what is the ineffable quality of something that you know attracts you to something, like I want to be involved in that. But
Yeah.
if, you know, if you had, you know, to explain that, to define that, to, you know, as you think about it today, you know, what would that be?
Yeah. That's a good question too. I think it's probably in some ways easier to describe what it's not than what it is. Um, like you know, I mean, we get sent so much music. I get sent stuff constantly, like in every place where I could possibly receive a message from somebody, you know. So I'm getting stuff from friends who want to play stuff. I'm getting stuff from complete strangers on Instagram, SoundCloud, email, everywhere. It's like it's actually like it's a lot. It feels really overwhelming sometimes. It's a big responsibility to be trusted with people's music. I feel like I want to try to listen to everything and as much as possible give people feedback, even when it's not something that we're gonna sign or put out. I would say, like, in general, like our range is very wide, but it has mostly to do with just like our personal taste. You know, we like things that are soulful. We like things that are rootsy. We like things that are kind of just interesting and different. We don't like music that sounds I mean, we end up being kind of non-generic, you know, and when I say non-generic, I just mean like it not so doesn't fit neatly into genres, because that's just kind of the stuff that we like, the stuff that sort of treads the line between genres a bit. We've got stuff that's like Latin, modern Latin stuff. We've got things that are straight up just sort of disco, new disco. We've got things that are more African influenced or Asian. And then we've got things that are a bit more on the Euro side of stuff too. God, I don't know. That was not helpful at all.
No, it wasn't unhelpful. I mean, it's nice that I mean, just you know, having the breadth of that, and like letting your gut, you know, kind of guide you, you know, allows you not to define things so much, and that, you know, kind of limits what you might
Yeah,
think.
well, one thing it's not is narrow. You know what I mean? Like we will sign a demo, like if we like it, we'll sign it. And then we'll figure out how we're gonna make it work, how we're gonna promote it. What's the way we're gonna bring this thing that we think is cool to the most amount of people? Does that mean a certain type of promotion as opposed to another type? Does it mean like getting some remixes on it, getting some other people associated with the project that will help bring light to it, you know, that wouldn't otherwise come to that artist? We've done that a lot. For example, we signed a couple years ago, we signed this record from this Brazilian artist, Ginu, and it's basically just like modern Brazilian jazz. And we had put out some Brazilian stuff before, like edits, and also stuff that's a bit clubbier from this group Biona System. We have a record with Jimster, and then I did a remix with Diogo Strauss. But we've never done just like, you know, it's just like straight up modern Brazilian jazz. And we're like, this is awesome music. We're going to put it out. And what are we going to do with it? So, you know, well, we put out the record and we followed it up with a remix package that kind of took the whole thing a bit more clubbier into our like more typical audience. But ultimately, if we like it, we'll just do it and we'll figure it out later.
Cool. I like that. Do you and Aaron ever disagree? Like, do you like
yeah, you know, we're like amazingly aligned like 95% of the time.
Cool.
But yes, there are definitely times where we disagree, and somebody, if they feel really strongly, can, you know, can win out. And then we make sure to rub it in the other person's face if it goes well or doesn't. Yeah.
That seems right.
Yeah, it seems fair, right?
Yeah. If there was anyone, you know, who like which artist or which release even in the world that, you know, is forthcoming, up and coming, and alive, dead, anything that you wish that you could have be associated with Razor Tape, what would it be?
God, that's all right. So like just like the ultimate wish list.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, yeah, it would be awesome to get access to Prince's vaults and make some like release some of that stuff, or make some new versions of some of that. That's like one of my, you know, all-time favorite artists. But more like on the realistic side of things, I think there are some great artists like who are still working, who are sort of like legends, like someone like Marcos Valle. Still, I just got a new promo. He just has a new track on Far Out that just came out. You know what I mean? Like people like that, I would love to try to. I mean, we're back to Brazil again, but that was just an example. You know, I think.
I mean, that's fine. I'm happy to live in Brazil. You know,
Yeah, well, I would be happy to as well. And hopefully I will one day. But yeah, you know, just like folks like that. I mean, I think I would love to just. Gosh, who? I mean, Stevie Wonder's still around, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Still active. I mean, as long as we're just, you know, rubbing the lantern, the genie,
Yeah.
getting the wishes, sure. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, why not? I actually saw Marcos Valle like a week and a half ago. He was in London.
Oh yeah, how was it? Was it good?
It was great. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. He's 80 years old and still
super youthful though. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. He played at the Jazz Cafe here in London. And
Yeah, nice. I saw that that show was happening. I was supposed to go over to the Jazz Cafe while I was there to go see Asha Puthli, but I wasn't. Just that was just ended up being a crazy day. I realize it's hard to do more than like two things in London a day, you know?
it is. I mean, it's pretty sprawling. I mean, even by New
Yeah,
York terms, everything is
yeah,
very spread out. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like I'm just like spending my life commuting when I'm there somehow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty spread out. And I mean, there are pros to that. Like, it's much less
sure.
hectic here than it is in New York. There isn't
Yes.
anything like a, like a Manhattan,
Yeah,
which I appreciate.
sure.
But yeah, it takes longer to get places.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Um, but no, I think that sort of rubbing the lantern question, is kind of a good segue into part two of the conversation, which is more oriented around your listening habits. And because in the background we're keeping track of all of the music mentions that come up in conversation and putting those into a database, and as a means of trying to use these as connective tissue to your kind of music world and other people's music worlds as the series progresses. So my first question is how do you discover music today? And I think you kind of already answered that with all the music that's coming in your way, but I guess even outside of that, if there are other means that are perhaps more intentional, if you could answer that question through perhaps who are some of your favorite curators, what are some of your favorite outlets or your platforms that you spend time with?
Yeah. I would say that like, I do, while I do get sent a lot of music, not just as demos, but also as promos, I personally have very few of those promos wind up being music that I play. And it's not because it's not good music. It's because the act of finding the music is part of like how it gets into my brain and gets internalized into something that I want to present.
Sure.
So I still like to go to record stores and buy records. And I like to do that virtually as well. Like I find tons of music on Bandcamp. And I just have this thing that I do all the time where like if I hear something and I like it, like maybe I Shazammed it from another DJ's set or something, then I'll take it and I'll go and I'll kind of like look it up on Discogs and look at, who's associated with this record. Is it whether it's the label, whether it's going to the credits and see who wrote on it, who played on it, and like, do like weird little dives into some of those people and start. And I find that to be a really fun, like spiderwebby way of finding some new stuff. Or even just, it could be as simple as like, and it's kind of the same as like a record store. It's like, maybe you go because you want to buy this record that came out, but then you're going to dig through the bins and see what else is there. I do that in people's collections up online too, on Discogs. I like to just see all right, this person's got this good record. Like, what is this other stuff they've got up there? You know what I mean? So I do that. And I would say, I try to support a lot of the music in my sets. I try to support a lot of the music that we're releasing as much as possible when it fits. I do like all of it. But as far as finding new stuff, yeah, that's like those are the main ways that I do it. Honestly, like maybe listening to some other DJs that I like and seeing what they're playing and trying to figure out some of that, and then doing the same kind of process, because I don't really love just like taking a song from somebody else's set and being like, oh, that's mine now. Like, of course, music is everybody's, but especially when you're, if you're like, if you go and like listen to a set that Antal played or somewhere, and it's got like, 80,000 listens to it. It's like, well, people kind of start associating the music with people,
Right.
So I like to try to always play my own stuff. But I might do the same kind of thing, like find that song. It's like, oh, what else did this group do? And like start to dig through some stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's like the fun part of music for me, is discovery. So the promo thing, I have a few people that I know always send good promos or have good selection and good curation of what they send. And I go through their stuff and I often find things I like, but the inbox is just flooded with this stuff. I can't believe how much music comes out every single day.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming,
It is.
You got to narrow it down somehow.
Yeah, it's really important to have you know, curators in our life that we trust, because there are 100,000 songs that are being uploaded to Spotify every single day, which is
Every day.
every day. It's insane.
Yeah, like, but 90,000 of them are like mumble rap, you know.
True, but I mean, even if 10,000, even if like 1,000,
even 10,000 is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, even 10,000 is a lot, and even if those 10,000, let's say 1,000 of them are like good,
Yeah,
and like
probably are. I mean,
I'm sure, and like this is resonant. They're not
Yeah.
only good, but resonant may be a better word.
Yeah.
Like good and bad is like too simplified when talking about music.
Sure.
But, yeah, that's still like you still need a curator. You still need help, like some kind of guardrails to get this music from this kind of infinity into your ears.
Yeah. I do find, for me, one of those good like narrowers is just, has it been released on vinyl? And I'm not like a vinyl purist at all, but it's one way of narrowing the field a bit for me, you know. And also, as someone who runs a label, I know that there's just a level of commitment that goes into putting something out on as a record. You know, there's a financial investment, and there's, you know, to me, I sort of feel like it's just one valid way of trying to like narrow the field of music out there that you have to try to digest.
Yeah, totally. That's a good point. I mean, it's it's kind of an indication, even if you're putting it out by yourself, it's like an indication if like you really take this very seriously.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it adds a degree of friction that has been removed by like the free distros or the close to free distros in which you can get music on Spotify no matter who you are.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to buy the record for every single one of those things, because, sometimes it's available digitally, and that just makes more sense depending upon the type of music it is, or the type of record, or just whether you want to try to play it quickly or not, if you're not going to get that record for a while or something. But I do notice it, I take note of that.
Yeah, cool. I like that. Okay, next question. What, if you can remember, is the first album you ever purchased, and what is the most recent?
Oh, wow. The first album I ever purchased, I think I think it was Def Leppard Pyromania on cassette from like this place called Caldor, which is in my town. It's like a Kmart or like a Walmart, I don't know what that is for you guys, but
no, I mean,
you don't even have this.
So yeah, I mean, I go to Walmart.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that was my first record. And my most recent album that I purchased was, I got the new Bruno Berle. Do you know him? He also released on Far Out. We've talked about them twice now, but yeah, he's a Brazilian like singer-songwriter. This album came out in the spring, I think, but I just got it recently. And it's beautiful. I forget what it's called. Let me see. It is called No Reino dos Efeitos.
No Reino dos Efeitos.
Yeah.
Cool.
Dos Efeitos 2, actually.
I will check that out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The first half of it is like very classic sounding, kind of like Caetano Gil 70s kind of stuff. But then sort of towards the middle, he pulls in some more modern sounds, and just the songwriting's really beautiful. Really simple arrangements, but nice.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. I'm excited for that. Okay, who are 3 artists of note that you heard for the first time in the past year or so?
Okay, 3 artists of note. Retro Migration. Maybe I heard about him last year, but I really like the stuff he's doing. I've dug into his music a bunch more. No, I heard about him a couple years ago. That doesn't count. Hang on. Let me do this for real. Am I allowed to go into my library?
Absolutely. Most people do.
Okay, good. Yeah, trying to like remember things.
I know.
let's see. God, it's all old music right here. Bear with me, please.
No problem. Take your time.
We can edit out this part, right? Man, I'm just trying to think. It's got to be something that I heard in the last year.
Year-ish. Like we're not going to hold
Year-ish.
you to like, you know, August 30th, 2023.
Okay, let's go with we can go with Retro Migration, because I don't remember when I actually started hearing his music, but I really like his productions a lot.
Okay.
And let's see. Actually, let me go in here too. This is another good place to look. I'm like a little weird with new music because I don't really pay attention at all to like what's actually new. So something that's new for me might not be new at all.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, for the sake of this question, it only has to
all
be
right. So I really like Lil Sims. And I don't like a lot of like new hip hop, but I was psyched to hear her, and I found her through like Salt and
oh yeah,
what's the producer's name? I'm forgetting now. Oh, Inflow, because he also produced that record that came out. I guess this record was new, which was new to me, is a couple years ago. Oh, and another artist that I really like, that I heard pretty recently. His name's Daniel Villarreal. He
that sounds really familiar.
You know him? So he's like on International Anthem and plays with that whole crew, the International Anthem, kind of like Chicago new jazz crew. But yeah, I really like his stuff a lot too.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite things about this series is all the listening fodder that comes up that I get to go dive into after the episode. Cool. Okay, this is the last question.
Okay.
Also the biggest. You're going to a desert island. You get to bring 3 records with you.
I will take Bill Evans, A Portrait in Jazz. I will take Rufus and Shaka Khan, but I'm sometimes bad with album names. Hang on, let me see. It's this one. The one with Sweet Thing, and what's the album called? Oh, fucking hell. Sorry. Hang on. You'd think that I would know the name of the album, Master Jam. Master Jam. I love that record. And I would probably, what else? I mean, I have like these things that I just go back to and listen to over and over and over again. I guess I should probably take one of those because I seem to just be able to listen to it forever.
Yeah. It's a good record.
Like, yeah, one of that. I mean, honestly, Bill Evans' Portrait in Jazz is that for me. I love that record so much. I could probably just never get tired of it. What's another one? I love, wait, I want to pick a good one here. Hang on, I'm looking through my stuff. I'm really bad with questions like this. I'm sorry.
No, this feels a high pressure question.
It feels very high pressure.
I mean, it's an impossible question, obviously, but
no, it's okay. You gotta try to do it. Oh, you know what? Black Uhuru, Chill Out.
Cool.
Yeah,
I like that. You said that with confidence.
Yeah. No, that's. I've listened to it 1,000 times, and I'll listen to it 1,000 more. So
cool. Great. That seemed relatively painless, anyways. Not so bad.
No, that was great. It was fun. I actually feel more awake than I did at the beginning, so that's good.
Good. I like to hear
Using
that.
the brain.
Cool. Yeah, that's about all we have. Thank you so much, Jason. And yeah, I mean, for people who are listening along who want to get involved, come see you play, check out Razor and Tape, what's a good place for them to do that?
I'm not sure exactly when this will be heard by everybody, but
soon, like within a week or two. Yeah.
Okay. So I will be on the West Coast, playing in Seattle on the 13th at Cherry with the Disco Dust crew, and then I am doing LA on the 14th at Groove Factory in Santa Monica.
Cool.
And then I will be at Flash Club in DC on September 28th.
Cool.
And then Atlanta the weekend after that, but I don't have that information yet.
Okay, no worries. Is there a is there a good place online where people can go follow so that when?
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, following me on Instagram is probably the best way, but I do try to post the dates up on this stupid website that I have too.
All right. Go to the stupid website.
Go to the stupid website, JKriv.com. It's probably already outdated as we said this, but yeah. Now I'm inspired to go update it.
Okay, cool. My last question, since you were an answer to this question, I want to ask you as well. Who else should we have on the on the series? What other music heads come to mind that we should invite to the show?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I would. I think Megatronic would be a great. You say you're having Megatronic? Okay, you already said that.
Yeah.
Kim On, another good friend of mine who I think is a great, interesting person to talk to. She's doing a lot of different cool things. Do you know her, Kim On, ANH?
No, I don't.
Yep, she's great. Some of our artists on Razor and Tape, Felipe, Prince of Queens, really interesting dude. He just put out a wonderful record. We just released a wonderful record of his called Merida, an EP on Razor and Tape. He also has a band called Combo Chimbita, which is like modern cumbia stuff.
Oh, sweet. I'll check that out. Love cumbia.
Yep. I think that you would probably have a good time chatting with a Phenomenal Handclap Band.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah. Or Midnight Magic.
Definitely.
And let me give you one more. Oh, Diogo Strauss. Diogo Strauss is a wonderful producer. We've released some stuff from him, and he's got some great stuff coming on the label too. Yeah,
cool.
He's from Brazil.
Amazing. That's a great list. Thank you.
Sure.
Cool, Jason. That's all we've got. Really appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate the energy and all that you do for the broader music world.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. Great to chat. Thanks for the nice questions.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And yeah, good luck at the shows this weekend. Hope they go well.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Absolutely. Take care, man.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for being here. That is a wrap on another episode of For the Record, a conversation series with all manner of music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. It's a production of Grey Matter and the new Crate Coalition experiment in building connective listening graphs. We stamp every music mention that you heard here, from the names of musicians to DJs to journalists and venue owners. And in the background, we're mapping these names to form those yet unseen connective threads between them. If you want to get involved, check out our website, greymatter.fm. It's Grey with an E. Or you can come hang out in the Crate Coalition Discord. We'll see you next time.